Mabuhay pageant fans! Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hey Adam G, kamusta na kayo? I hope you are all safe from the Omicron menace plaguing our country right now. Mas our cases are still on an all-time high. Sana masaya kayong lahat na go work from home and nag-iingat din kayo if you really have the need to go out. So, the pageant updates keep coming in at long last, diba? Miss International is finally happening this year! Woot woot! Thanks to the tweet update of Sir Stephen Inventor Diaz from the Miss International organization that it is committed to organize the edition this coming December, either in Japan or in another country, should Japan bail out due to the country's pandemic situation. Sa totoo lang guys, hearing this update must be a sigh of relief for all the girls joining this pageant. Diba, ang hirap din nun maghintay ng 3 taon. So I'm really glad that it is finally moving to make it happen. Whether it will be held in Japan or elsewhere, I am glad that the organization is finally making steps or ways for the edition to finally push through para makapag-train na rin yung mga Merlies with clarity, right? Similarly, I am also glad that the Miss World organization has given us an update about its announcement of the top 40 candidates who will be going to Puerto Rico for the postponed finals this coming March. Alam ko matagal pa ang March, but I really welcome this move of Miss World to trim down its list to 40 so that it could effectively put and monitor the girls in a safe bubble. Because for everyone's health and safety, because I really have a feeling that Miss World will really have a different format in the finals, given that it has invited only the top 40 girls. But regardless, whether it's 40 or even less, I hope it has already devised a plan to ensure the safety and well-being of the girls for that week-long pageant. So anyway, for today's content, speaking of Miss World, usapang wishlist pa rin tayo, but this time, let's put a twist on it. Let's make a wishlist naman for the guys, for our guys naman in terms of who I want to see representing us in Mr. World and Mr. Supranational and the other international male pageants in the near future, whether this year or in the near future. So special shout out to Sir Lemuel Tayag on Instagram and Gomu Gomu TV here on my YouTube channel for suggesting this topic. Sige, let's go about this. Which guys I would like us to represent in the international stage abroad? Well, you better stick around for my Mr.'s Philippines Wishlist 2022. So before I start, I will categorize the guys into 4 categories. 4 guys who I would like to represent us in Mr. World, Mr. Supranational, Manhunt International, and Mr. Global and Mr. International. Pinag-combine ko na lang sa last category. Except for Mr. Supranational, I was able to cover the other 4 pageants on the ground in recent years. So somehow, I kinda know what these organizations are looking for in a winner. So let's begin with my first category, which is the guys who I would like to represent us in Mr. World. I know the Miss World organization has not given us any update when it will hold its next male pageant, given it has been almost 3 years since their last edition. However, here is the list of guys who I still want to represent us in Mr. World, whether this year or in the near future. And number 1 on my list is RAED AL-ZGHAYER. I hope I pronounce his name right. I have been keeping an eye on this handsome Filipino Jordanian hunk since meeting him at last year's screening for Mr. World Philippines. Ang lakas talaga ng dating niya in person, and with his imposing 6'2" height, he is surely a crowd drawer. Another cool fun fact about him is that he has already walked pala for Michael Cinco before, so wow, bongga! Apart from that, I also love that he has great communication skills as evidenced by his winning answer on his last pageant, which was Man of the Philippines UAE. And he also has an incredible backstory where you would never believe that this handsome guy with a drop-dead gorgeous body was overweight and bullied when he was younger. So this guy really seems to be the overall package. However, the only drawback that I am seeing from him in competing here is his age, as he is already 31 years old. As I know, the age limit of Mr. World is only until 29 years old. But hopefully, the rules of Mr. World have already changed because of the pandemic. So let's see. Next on my list is JP OCAT. You know what? Since competing in his previous pageant, I have been waiting for this guy to try joining another pageant just because I feel this guy could really speak and blow our minds away with his gift of gab. Feeling ko talaga may unfinished business pa talaga tong si JP. And why not? He really has the face, height, and wit. It's only now upon research that I found out that he is a graduate of Bachelor of Arts in International Studies in Global Politics from Ateneo de Cagayan. So that explains why he is a great public speaker. So at 27, I really hope JP could be convinced to join again, as bihirang-bihira lang talaga yung mga katulad niyang male contestants na makuda, like a rare breed, plus with his engaging personality. So if he joins, I really see him doing a Jack Hasselwood or Brian Forge of Mexico, charming us with his clean look and lean physique. Next on my list is ERIK LENART VEISSER. You know what? This guy also looks promising for an alpha male pageant. For those of you who don't know him, he is the outgoing Mr. Universal Tourism and was supposed to compete in Bali for the international edition last 2020. Tama ba ako? However, the pandemic happened, so obviously he wasn't able to compete abroad. Luckily, however though, he is only 23 years old now and has a lot of time to think about his pageant career. So as I research more about him pala, he is a Filipino-Dutch and is a licensed private pilot and has a degree in International Studies from Silliman University in Dumaguete City. And he stands 6'3" tall. So that's a great plus talaga. But it's not only his height and looks that gets me to him, but yung communication skills niya talaga. Sobrang smart and talino daw talaga ng batang to. And I know he is too young for Mr. World, but I feel he is really mature for his age given his background. And last on my Mr. World Philippines category is John EPHRAIM JM Mamangun or JM Mendoza. I surely could not get enough of this fresh face when I saw him at the Mr. World Philippines screening last year. Ang lakas din talaga ng dating nitong taong to with his cutie face and beard. He really has a huge potential talaga in making it as a future male representative of our country to an international male pageant. For starters, this 26-year-old hunk comes from Pampanga and stands at 5 feet 10 inches tall. He used to work as a cabin crew for a major airline after finishing his accounting degree from the Angeles University Foundation. At present, he has been dabbling into modeling and acting on television. So whichever pageant this guy will be sent eventually, for sure, he will definitely be a gold mine as his face is really commercial. Binibiro ko nga parang kamukha niya yung reigning Mr. Supranational ngayon na si Varo Vargas. Ganun kalakas ang dating ng mukha niya. And now, let's go to my second category, which is the guys who I want to represent us in Mr. Supranational. And number one on my list here is KIRK BONDAD. Hands down. If this guy is appointed to be our representative to this year's Mr. Supranational pageant, then we could finally see our country making it to top 5 at least. Or if not, win this whole thing. KIRK really has a commercial face. Pansin nyo. And towering height. 6'2" yata siya, given his Filipino-German lineage. And not only that, he really has a huge personality and social media following to back up his bid, as evidenced by his kulit Instagram posts and stories about his modeling job in Thailand ngayon. And for someone who has been earning a lot of money as a model abroad, I am so glad KIRK is still open to the idea of competing and representing us in the international pageant, despite being disqualified at the last minute in Century Tuna last year because he got COVID. But now that his modeling contract in Thailand will expire this year, I am hoping he will finally say yes to Sir Arnold Vegafria should the latter appoint him to be our country's representative to the Mr. Supranational pageant later this year or in August. 'Di ba? For those of you asking kung magkaka-pageant ba ang Mr. World Philippines for the title of Mr. Supranational this year, I really do not know. I cannot answer categorically because as we all know, Sir Arnold Vegafria is busy with his electoral campaign. So I don't know. So May pa yung election. So probably we will see some updates about Mr. World Philippines or Mr. Supranational after the elections. And second on my list here is Philip Magalona. You know what? One look at him and you will easily be charmed by this brooding, handsome model. Ang lakas din talaga ng dating niya whether on or off screen. As a ramp commercial and print ad model who stands at 6'2", he certainly knows his angles talaga. So when he joined Century Tuna Super Buds and made it as one of the finalists, I was so delighted as he also had an interest pala in joining pageantry. But since then, I have never heard so much about him. So I hope this guy considers joining again as he really has a great potential talaga. At 27, he is really a potential Mr. Philippines delegate. Konting polishing lang sa communication skills ang kailangan nito and he is really off to go. And next on my list is Aaron BEAU Davis. You know what? He is certainly another male model who I would like to try in the male pageantry again. When he broke out in the fashion and pageant industry last 2018, he sent everyone's hearts aflutter with his commercial face, great physique, and huge stage presence. At 6'5", ang tongkad niya, 6'5", this half-Filipino Kiwi FEU basketball player not just only stands out in the basketball court, but also in the crowd as well. Actually, Aaron is no longer a stranger to pageantry and modeling competitions as he represented our country to Istanbul, Turkey in the male category of best model of the world and was awarded best in catwalk. He earned this representation. He earned the right to compete in this pageant after being one of the winners of the inaugural Global Asian Model Competition ni Sir Jonas Gafford back in 2018, right? So upon research, I also found out that he was supposed to compete in Century Tuna Super Buds last year but was prevented by the lockdown brought by this pandemic in New Zealand. So hopefully, once everything probably eases up both here in Manila and Auckland, we might see him back in action again. And now, let's go to my next category, which is the list of guys who I would like to see to represent us in Manhunt International. And number one on my list here is ARJUN Gange. You know what? One look at him and you would think he is really a cross between Sam Ajdadni and Neil Perez, at least to me. This 6-footer guy is really magnetic, whether in photos or in the flesh, and I have had the privilege of seeing him in motion in the Mr. World Philippines screening last year, and wow, I am really amazed at his communication skills. This guy could speak pala, as evidenced pa when he was picked to be the main host of Hari ng Pilipinas pageant last year, and now I heard that he is about to represent our country to the forthcoming Mr. Tourism Ambassador slated in China later this year. So this will really surely make him a formidable contestant if he decides to try out for another pageant, whether this year or in the near future. Next on my list here is Tony OTEYZA. He is another crossover whom I want to see in another pageant again. As someone who competed in Century Tuna Super Buds in 2018, he really has the experience and confidence to go big time in male pageantry. At 25 or 26 years old and standing almost 6 feet tall, this guy from DLSU is really brimming with so much confidence, especially when it comes to his communication skills. Sa totoo lang guys, when you see him in the flesh, he really has an amazing personality, especially when he talks about his passion, which is bodybuilding. If there is one minor improvement he needs to do is that he needs to refine his overall stage presence and demeanor to make a more lasting impression. And next on my list for Manhunt International is Kevin Redder. Yup. Out of all the guys who competed in Hari ng Pilipinas pageant last year, this guy for me has got to be the most promising one. And why not? He is a 26-year-old half Filipino European multimedia artist who stands at 6'3" tall. And if you have been checking out and following this young guy on his Instagram, it feels like a curated feed of his modeling portfolio, whether showcasing his hypnotizing eyes and his long and lean physique. Ang commercial din talaga ng mukha ni Kevin, and I think he will be a great fit if he gets sent to Manhunt International, as the pageant seems to be favoring guys, crowning tall guys with commercial faces in its more than 20 years of existence in the pageant industry. And last on my Manhunt International wish list is Gabriel Valentino. Yep, he is another hottie whom I also stumbled upon on Instagram. And to be honest, I don't know anything about him except his love for bodybuilding, which dominates most of his posts in all his social media accounts. I guess he is 5 feet 10 inches tall just by looking at him on his account. And what I like about this half Filipino, half Puerto Rican guy on Instagram is that he really has an engaging personality, especially when he smiles. And I also love the fact how he has started using his TikTok to showcase more of his bodybuilding prowess and a bit of his personality na rin to engage more of his followers. So it's really something that other guys here in my list could also emulate. And now we go to my last category, which is the guys who I want to represent us in either Mr. Global or Mr. International. And number 1 on my list here is Vincent Jarina. After Neil Perez and John Adahar, I have been on a lookout for that ultimate kisig Pinoy hunk who could represent us again in the international pageant. And Vincent Jarina seems to be the most promising for this title. Just look at his brooding eyes and well-chiseled Filipino look. Alam mong aangat itong mukhang ito internationally, whether in pageants or commercial or magazine editorial modeling, especially with his 6'2" height. Actually, Vincent is no longer stranger to pageantry, as well as he has competed in an international pageant before, which I believe was last 2017. So yeah, I hope he also considers joining another pageant again kasi ang lakas din talaga ng dating niya. And next on my list here is Gabriel Bautista. To be honest, this guy is a pleasant discovery on a recent pageant he joined. This guy, I think it was Mr. Sa Filipinas. This guy from Taguig really made a huge impression there. Gab is only 20 years old and stands at 6'1" tall. And upon research, he is currently a tourism management student and was a former basketball varsity player. In fact, his love for basketball has inspired him to create an advocacy about it, which is to put up a basketball camp and teach less fortunate kids about the sport in his city. So, alam mo yon, may potential talaga tang batang to talaga sa male pageantry. If only he will be groomed and trained very well for his next pageant. Medyo kinabahan lang talaga ng slide sa Q&A niya itong taong to last time, pero may dating magsalita eh. So pukpukang training lang sa Q&A ang magiging kailangan niya if he joins another pageant again. But since he is only 20 years old, I guess he could take his time to really, live a full life experience first before going back to pageantry again. Check out his Instagram account. Makikita niyo yung sinasabi ko. And last on my list here is Anthony M. Flores. You know what? This guy is also another pleasant discovery in the pageant scene as I scout more names here on my list. Ang lakas ng sex appeal ng batang ito. And I was really surprised to find out he already entered in a male pageant before, Man of the Philippines way back in 2018. And for a 20-year-old guy back then, he really looks very fresh and promising. Currently, he is working as an endorser and participating in a lot of charity works for Front Row Philippines. So, wow, big time. However, should this guy really pursue a career in pageantry, I really hope he needs to hone his communication skills further to make him more sleek and neat as a future male pageant contestant. So there you go, guys. What do you think about my list? If you notice, apart from face value, a guy's height, personality, experience, and communication skills were the common denominator. Emphasis on the height and communication skills. Diba? As we all know, height is might in male pageantry talaga. Otherwise, we will be seen floundering again in the final cut if we don't take all these into consideration. Because let's face it, our country has a very weak sash, especially in Mr. World and Mr. Supranational. So as I feel we can't seem to get the winning formula. Lagi lang tayong nasa top 12 or top 20. And 10 years after, more than 10 years after, we have not really duplicated the successes of Andrew Wolf and Neil Perez. Kung ano ang surge natin sa female pageantry is the complete opposite naman of our situation in male pageantry. So I don't know how we could entice more quality, good-looking Filipino men with an impressive resume or background to join male pageants here. Actually, itong list ko, I really don't know if majority of them are still interested to join given their potential or caliber as a contestant. Ang hirap talaga kasi maghanap ng fresh faces na guy dito as pageantry compared sa female pageantry. So if you notice, most of the guys here on my list are all returnees or crossovers. So for now, I am banking on these crossovers with ample pageant experiences to make our country soar again in the world of male pageantry. So, there you go, guys. There goes my list. Feel free to share your comment down below kung agree kayo sa listahan ko o may mga naiisip pa kayong ibang mga names ng guys who you think could also be a good fit for all these international male competitions. Alright, guys. Until my next video. Bye!